Hello, everybody. I'm Sharon Lee Williams, and this is Outraised Voices. Thank you for showing up today, whatever day you showed up. If you're Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I appreciate you showing up. And if you're new here, thank you so much for joining us. Anyhow, today our show is about the tender conversation of grief. And that's with our CEO, Suzanne Jabour. But before I introduce you to Suzanne, I wanted to give you a heads up that because of technical difficulties, you will see and hear Suzanne, but you'll only hear my voice. Now, although Suzanne graciously offered to redo the interview, I just felt that it was such a wonderful, informative, authentic interview that I felt that I wanted to share that in a positive way. And of course, we will invite Suzanne on another episode. Now, to let you know what the technical difficulties were, it had to do with me. Now, most of you see me, and maybe you think I have a team around me. I do not. They are remote. And I press buttons, and on that particular episode, I forgot to press the record button. And that is what happened. So I apologize, and I thank you for allowing me to pivot. And now, don't forget, if you enjoy this episode or you have any thoughts about any of the shows, please subscribe and share your feedback, because your support means so much to us and the community. I want to hear your voice and perhaps share your story, so I will have the opportunity to read your story to others, or maybe you'll come on the show. I don't know. And on that note, I appreciate you. I thank you. Now, here's Suzanne. Now, today on Outraised Voices, we're going to talk about grief. We will have that uncomfortable conversation about loss and grief, which most of us will have experienced or will experience at some point in our lives. Today's CEO, Suzanne Jabour, is a grief educator, a coach, and a consultant. Now, Suzanne is going to help us to navigate how we can support, or what even to say to someone who is grieving. You know, as I was looking at this, I thought to myself, is that line, and I will ask that, "I'm sorry for your loss," is what most of us know how to say. Mm-hmm. Suzanne is also a parent who has lost her own precious child and has been open about sharing her journey, where she was and where she is now. This is a tough conversation, but life is made up of tough conversations as well as joyful conversations. So today we're going to learn from not only a grieving mother, but a former adoptee, and how she's navigated that aspect of her life, and if there was any sense of loss or grief related to that relationship as a child with a biological mother whom she recently found, and an adopted mother. Hi, Suzanne.
Hello, Sharon Lee.
And Thank you so much for saying yes. Now, for our viewers, I want to say Suzanne and I met in 2023 doing this fabulous mastermind. We met in person. We got to hug in person, got to know a little bit about each other in person, and that relationship we just learned through community, and that's what this is about. So I asked Suzanne to be on the show to share her journey, and especially with those of us who have gone through foster care or who are adopted, because grief is not just about loss in one way. We know loss of a child or a parent. It is loss of identity, loss of nationality, their loss of self-worth. So we're going to talk about that today with Suzanne. And that's where we are, Suzanne. But before I even start that, Suzanne, I want to say to you, I watch a lot of, or listen to a lot of podcasts about 2:00 in the morning because I have a bit of insomnia, right? And the other day I heard this wonderful statement from somebody. I don't know who it was. And she said, grief is like a war. You have to fight it on a lot of fronts. Now, is that feel true for you or not?
That's so interesting. It does and it doesn't. And I'll tell you why. It does in that it's a lot of fronts.
Yes.
Right? It's all over coming from every direction, aggravated by who knows what, activated by who knows what. It's funny, where I have resistance to that idea is in my understanding of war as being about resistance, right? Is that you're trying to stop something that's invading. And I found for me and for the people that I work with, really the answer to grief isn't in resistance. It's in acceptance. Even when it's horrifying and even when it's full of despair and even when it feels impossible, to just allow all of that to be acceptable.
Absolutely.
Because I think it's in the resistance where we get stuck, right? It's in the trying to go, well, I'm not doing that anymore. Well, okay.
Okay.
But it doesn't really work that way. So,
that's right.
So that's where it's kind of I love that the all fronts idea. I love because we know usually the kernel of our grief, right? My most recent grief is from the death of my son. That's easy to identify. But then as you were saying, there's all those other griefs that layer on it, right? The loss of myself, of my identity, of friends and family relationships, of, my sense of how the world works. And that all for me happened in September of 2020 when a lot of that was already in turmoil for us on a global scale.
Right.
So then on top of that,
that's such a recent loss. I mean, it's still, I hear you now, but it's still recent. It's still, I'm feeling it as you say it. And I just want to say, as a mother, I'm thinking, I can't imagine. And the other part of me doesn't want to imagine. I don't want to imagine that, but
no.
So what if somebody now coming into your circle, people didn't know at that time, what do they say to you? What would you like them to say to you or to another mom or?
It's interesting. People that find out now, because because part of what's so interesting about us as a culture in the West is that if you think about it, we actually ask really personal questions as getting to know you questions. They're really weirdly personal. Like we don't say, hey, what's your favorite color? Or, what's your favorite food? We ask things like, oh, how many kids do you have? Depending on your age, you're going to get that question. If you have any, don't have any, never wanted them, desperately wanted them. Like nobody knows anything about you, but they're going to ask this super personal question. So I get asked that super personal question all the time. And I just think, oh, well, you're going to wish you hadn't asked because I know that for many people, my answer sucks the air out of the room because I refuse to deny that I am still the mother of two. And I say, oh, I have two kids. My daughter is turning 30 at the end of September. I don't know how that happened. She lives with me and my son died in September 2020. And inevitably what they say is, oh, I'm so sorry. And I say, and I am too. And then usually they change the subject immediately.
So how, well, just that, they change the subject, the uncomfortable conversation. So is there a way, and I asked this, I wrote this down in my questions, but not as a judgment, but is there a way that you say, okay, I'm going to be responsible and help them through this conversation? not that they always want it, but is there a language to say, or is that the nurturer in us that goes, it's okay, you don't have to, it's okay. How do you do that? Or do you do that? Or once in a while?
For me, it partly depends on the circumstances and kind of the vibe that I get from the person.
Right.
Because if we're going to have a longer conversation, then I might say, I'm really sorry too. I don't know. Like, there are ways to open up that conversation. For the most part, it's when people realize that in this casual place of really not much of a relationship, and we're not really trying to build a relationship, right? It's often colleagues or, someone you have that kind of casual relationship with, then I don't. If they come back after I say, oh, I'm really sorry too, with, can you tell me something about him? Are you comfortable talking about it? I'd love to know more about how you're navigating it. Oh, I can't even imagine. I have these 2 kids and they're the light of my life. If there's any opening there, I will take it.
And do you ever have do you ever feel the moment that you say, I don't really want to talk about I don't want to go there today?
I'm always prepared to go there.
Oh, that's
yeah, I'm always prepared to go there. And I'll tell you why. Part of it is because for whatever reason, it's not impossible for me to talk about. I was going to say it's easy for me to talk about. It's not easy to talk about.
No.
But it's not impossible for me to talk about. And I know for so many people, it's impossible for them to talk about it.
Did distance make it easier? Did distance?
Not really.
No, okay.
Not really.
It's just a choice?
Sort of yes and sort of no. I think for me, my talking about it started as out of survival. I made the choice to be a grieving mom, grieving out loud. Because I knew for my own survival, that was the only way I was going to be able to do it. If you think, for those of us of a generation, you can think of those Looney Tunes cartoons, and there's always the one with the opera singer and someone's holding a goblet, or it's often in kind of a campy comedy movie. Someone's holding the goblet and the opera singer sings that note and the goblet shatters.
Yes.
I knew I was that goblet. And I was that fragile. And if I didn't keep letting out of the goblet all the stuff, I was going to shatter. I could see that shattering so clearly. And that's not what I wanted for myself. So I have talked about it openly, publicly.
Yes, I know.
Within relationships with other people, with anybody who would listen sometimes, and they're listening very uncomfortably, which is okay. Really from the very beginning, because that for me was about survival. I had to be able to say his name. I had to be able to talk about what was true for me. And I had no capacity to pretend. Like, I had no ability to, the masks that we wear and the faces we put on. Those were all like in my post-apocalyptic bomb blasted life somewhere. I didn't even have them anymore. And I just I was not capable of putting on a front. So people got what was true. And that for me was so freeing, and really has led me down this path of then wanting to educate people and wanting to help people that are supporters and wanting to help organizations and leaders and bosses and the grievers themselves, because even as the grievers, we're scared and we don't know what to do or say.
Yes.
We all are, because it's this taboo topic that we don't talk about. And when we don't talk about it, the same as with your mission to share more stories of people coming out of foster care or coming out of adoption or being raised away from our identity, of our sort of genetic, ancestral, inherited identity. There's a way that sharing our stories of grief also opens up space. Yes. And it opens up understanding, and it opens up the possibility that we could change the paradigm we're in right now, which doesn't serve anybody.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That, and well, you epitomize the CEO, conversation, education, and outreach. That's what I talk about. And having the conversation, because you are not alone. There are other moms, dads, grandparents, siblings. And let's talk about that, if you don't mind, your daughter. Because now, is her journey the same as yours? Did you have to, how did you navigate that? Yeah.
That's a hard no.
The hard no.
Yeah, hard no. It's really interesting because she 100% didn't want to grieve publicly and out loud at all.
Mhm.
She has had a much more private, quiet journey.
Mhm.
And I was really grateful. So I was grateful for a bunch of things. My gratitude is, vast for
Yes.
all, for the few mighty, I call them my stalwart companions. There's about 4 people in my life that showed up for me in massive, massive ways. And one of them sent me a beautiful book, which usually I have beside me so I can hold it up, but it's in the other room today, called Tear Soup. And it's a book about grief. It's a children's book. So it's a picture book for children.
Mhm.
It's spectacularly good. It's written by grief experts in the most thoughtful way. And one of the lines in that book, it's a grandma who's grieving, and they never identify who she's grieving, which is fine. But there's one line where it talks about how grandpa is doing it differently, but that he's okay with how grandma's doing it and grandma's okay with how he's doing it. And I read that there because my one brilliant friend sent that to me almost immediately. It arrived at my door through the magic of Amazon. And so I had read it because I couldn't read for a long time. My reading comprehension and ability to just read was really limited. But a kid's book I could get through, right? It's a picture book. And I had heard that from somewhere else, that really what impacts families and has them fall apart for the most part is our judgment of how each other are grieving, which would be so easy to fall into, right? Because I'm grieving out loud. I'm talking about it to anybody who will listen. I'm crying all over the place. And my daughter, Kathleen, is choosing to do it much more quietly. And I could have very easily thought, well, she's not even crying today, and I've cried the whole day, so she's not grieving him. But I knew that wasn't true.
Of course, your unique journeys, your unique beings, so your journey is different. Yeah.
And I also realized, which I think is really important in family situations, in a weird way, we weren't even grieving the same person. Because my son and her brother,
yes,
that's not the same person. The
yes.
relationships aren't the same.
Yes.
The funny stories aren't the same. The memories aren't the same. So in a weird way, that really allowed me to give her complete permission to just do it her way. And I asked the same of her. We talked about it. I said, oh, okay, we're going to do this very differently. And so for us to come through it, the 3 of us were really close, and I wanted she and I to remain close. And so I said to her, for us to come through this and be able to navigate it for the rest of our lives, because this is going to be with us for the rest of our lives, we're going to have to be okay with each other doing it differently.
So where is she now? Where in her journey and your journey? Well, where is her journey taken her? And then where is your journey taken you? And do you find that you're kind of going along the same road now, do you find that, or you're still separated in how you're navigating this? Yeah,
I think, as much as you can be on the same road on these sort of unique journeys, yes. I think we are on the same road. We seem to be in similar places with what activates our grief and with what we're kind of okay with. We're still navigating stuff because it's really hard sometimes to navigate the person's stuff. So we're still navigating stuff. For example, and in there, we're completely unified, which is great because then there's no tension about what do we do with the stuff. We're like, well, it stays on the shelves. Like, we're okay with that. That's working for us. So that has been really good. And I think, there's some times of the year where you can predict the grief is going to be more. So you can prepare for those. And we do that very thoughtfully, and we talk about it, and we're really open. So yeah, we're really intentional. We've done a lot of things really intentionally with a lot of communication between the 2 of us. And I think that has really helped us to navigate it and keep it kind of moving. Because one of the things that's really important for us to do with grief is to keep it moving, right? We tend to worry that if we allow it and if we turn to face it, we'll get stuck.
What do you mean? Can you explain that a little bit more? Keep it moving. Keep it moving.
Yeah. So I think one of the things people worry about when they think about sort of accepting their grief or facing it and allowing all those big emotions and allowing the tears and allowing the wailing and allowing themselves to scream at the world, that they'll get stuck there and that will be forever. And the reality is that the turning and facing it and allowing all of that is what keeps it flowing and keeps it moving. And then we don't get stuck. And eventually over time, you learn to kind of ride the waves of it. Like for me, the water metaphors around grief really work really well. And so you learn to kind of ride the waves and mostly stay afloat, which isn't to say there isn't a tsunami coming. Sometimes that you can predict, sometimes that you can't. That will toss you back underwater and you're back bailing your boat again, trying to figure out what the heck happened and who are you now and all of the things. But for the most part, when you kind of let it flow and allow it to be okay, even though it's, in those earliest days, it's horrifying. It's really horrifying. When it's someone that close to you, someone that intrinsically tied in your life, it's horrifying. And it makes no sense. So we're trying to make sense of the nonsensical. If we can embrace that that's the journey, the journey is over time to make sense of the nonsensical and just ride that wave of kind of nuttiness, of, absurdity in some ways, then the emotions keep flowing and the grief changes over time. We change. How we carry ourselves in the world changes. Who's in our circles changes. Almost everything changes if we can allow it to flow.
And for our viewers out there, I know some of you are saying, but I can't get there. I can't get there from here. She's in a different place. That's not something I can do. I'm stuck. I am just stuck. All of that is okay. Wherever you are is wherever you are at this time. It will change. There is a beginning, there is a middle, and there is, of course, an ultimate end to everything. But we don't, I don't think you're saying to anybody, this is my journey, and, you open up and that's it's just a journey that when we take it is our own unique way of taking it. But I love hearing your voice about the journey because it does help. It does help to say, oh, okay, I can cry. I can scream. Yeah. That's okay. That's okay. I can lose it, fall apart.
Find a smash room. This is my favorite recent advice. I was on one of my grief cafes and we were talking about the big emotions and how to move them. And I said, well, everybody needs a smash room. And nobody in the room had ever heard of a smash room.
Yes, I only seen that on TV.
If you are stuck, go find a smash room, right? Because when we're stuck, it's because we're trying to hold it all so tight because we're scared of falling apart.
And we're doing it for others as well. We get stuck.
And
we don't want to show up in the mask and the...
We don't want to be a burden to anybody. Yes. We don't want to scare people. Yes. We don't want to be crying all the time.
Yes.
And, that's a very valid choice to make.
Yes,
I had days where I had to do that, where I had to be like, oh, crap, I have to be at work almost the whole day today.
Yes.
Well, okay. And I cried at work sometimes because I was not going to shatter like the glass. I knew that wasn't a choice. So I cried at work sometimes. But I also had a safety space. I had safe spaces at work to be able to do that. Not all of them were. What I would say to someone who's feeling really stuck, who's hearing this and thinking, oh, I don't even know how, if that seems appealing, I don't even know how to get from here to there. It is one breath, one baby step at a time. That's it. Really in those earliest days where you feel like you're falling apart, because you are. So let's just normalize that you should be feeling like you're falling apart. You should feel like you have no idea what to do. You should feel like you don't even understand how the world works. You should feel like you can't feed yourself, right? That's all very normal, but nobody tells us that. So when it happens to us as a griever, I was terrified.
Yes.
I was absolutely terrified. My son had died. I knew I would never again be the person who had gone to bed the night before I received that middle of the night phone call from the police. I was never going to be her again. So I didn't know who I was. And somehow I had some instant onset brain disorder because my brain did not work. And in reality, every single thing that was happening to me is absolutely normal. But I didn't know that because no one had told me about it when it happened to them.
Yeah, there's no conversation. As you said, there isn't a conversation about that or open conversation. And yourself, you're bringing that to the forefront. And not to even lessen it, but I've heard more people feel comfortable if someone tells them that someone's pet has died and how they're taking that on. You know, people seem to, and people are very attached to their pets. But that conversation seems easier for people to handle with another person.
Yeah.
You know, which is it talks about us and what our fears are and, limitations.
And that's what I was going to say. It's less scary, right? It's less scary.
Yes.
And for me, what I found is the people who I thought would be there for me, who had been really close friends, who weren't, I think part of it is because it was too close.
Yes.
Right? They were other moms that I had befriended through our kids that were the same ages. That's terrifying, to show up for someone who has experienced the thing you fear the most.
Yes.
That's terrifying.
Big point.
To show up for someone whose pet has died, which, yes, we all love our pets dearly, but it's not as scary.
Yep.
We can show up for that more easily. And what I think is really magical about that is if we can practice showing up for people on all those other losses, because as you so beautifully said, it's about loss of identity, it's loss of culture, it's loss of a job, it's loss of a business, it's loss of a home, it's loss of a car, it's loss of a pet, it's loss of a relationship. It's all of those have grief attached to them.
Yes.
And those are all places we can show up for each other before we go into cheerleading mode, which in North America we're so good at. We could say something like, wow, I know you really valued that relationship. I know you were really excited about that job. I know you really were passionate about that business. And I bet you have some feelings about that. And if you want to talk about those feelings, I'm a person that you could do that with. I would be happy to sit with you while you do that. And if you don't, that's okay.
Yes, the understanding.
Also, because it's their choice, right? It needs to be informed by what they need, not what we want them to need, or we think they need, or we need them to need, or any of that.
And we have to understand that. Yeah. We have to understand that people who don't come, who we thought would be there and don't show up, as you say, there's a fear attached to that. There's no animosity there. It's just, okay, that's your thing, but here's what I needed. Here's what I needed.
Yeah, and I think circling back to the folks who are feeling really stuck, whenever I'm working with someone who's feeling really stuck, one of the things I'm most curious about is if they have anyone in their world acting as a witness. Because one of the universals around grief is it needs witnessing.
Yes.
So if you're trying to do it by yourself and put on that good front for everybody else, that's a place of stuckness, right? Where we can very easily get stuck. So if you can find one person that can just sit with you, either while you talk about it or don't talk about it, or cry or don't cry, or scream or yell, or just be silent, but acknowledge that that's a time where we're grieving.
Yes.
That can also help you to be able to get back into being able to just even conceive that there is a baby step that you could take.
Yes. Yes.
Because there is one. There always is a next right thing, even if it's tiny. And we're, especially in those early days, or if you're in some phase and feeling stuck, we're talking incremental, fractional, like we are not striding. We are not jumping over the Grand Canyon, right? We are taking baby steps. We're shuffling, but that still keeps us in motion.
In part 2, Suzanne will continue her conversation about adoption and grief.